Have you ever felt like no one truly gets you? Like your thoughts move too fast, your feelings are too deep, and the world around you just isn't catching up? Here's a truth most people don't realize. Some of the most emotionally intelligent and visionary people are also the most misunderstood. And no zodiac sign knows that better than Aquarius. They're called cold, distant, unattached. But behind that calm face is a mind that never stops dreaming, and a heart that quietly carries the weight of the world. Aquarians don't just live in the present, they build the future. They question the rules, break patterns, and in doing so, they challenge all of us to grow. But what's really going on inside the mind and heart of an Aquarius? Why do they crave both connection and space? And how can understanding them help us understand ourselves better? In this video, we're going deep into the psychology, the astrology, and the emotional truths behind Aquarius energy. These are not just zodiac traits. These are human truths. If you've ever been called too different, if you've ever felt alone in a crowded room, you might find something here that speaks directly to your soul. So before we dive in, make sure to subscribe, hit like, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because the journey we're about to take isn't just about Aquarius. It's about all of us. Some people think Aquarius is emotionally distant, that they live in their heads too much. But what if I told you? That's exactly what makes them powerful. Aquarius has this rare ability to detach from emotions without disconnecting from compassion. It's not that they don't feel, oh, they do. Sometimes, more than most. But they've learned to step back, to observe, to breathe, to respond, not react. In a world that's constantly pulling us into emotional whirlwinds, this ability to remain centered is not a flaw. It's a gift. Think about it. When everything around you is chaos, at work, in relationships, even in your own mind, who do you call? The one who can keep calm. The one who can offer perspective. That's the Aquarian energy. They don't rush to comfort you with empty words. Instead, they give you space. Space to feel. Space to think. And then, they help you find the logic inside your storm. It may not be the warmth of a hug, but sometimes it's exactly what you need. They're ruled by the element of air, which means their mind is always moving, thinking, creating, connecting dots others don't even see. You might be talking about dinner plans, and they're already considering how to solve a global issue. That's not distraction. That's vision. That's Aquarius. I once met a woman, an Aquarius, who worked as a systems designer. She would sit silently in meetings, barely speaking. People thought she was disengaged. But when it came time to solve the problem, she pulled out a complete blueprint that no one had even considered. She saw what others missed. Not because she was louder, but because she had space in her mind to see things differently. And that's the thing about Aquarians. They don't need to shout to lead. Their leadership isn't loud. It's visionary, subtle, strategic. And sometimes, it feels like they're living 10 years ahead of us. Because, in a way, they are. Their need for the future isn't about escaping the present. It's about building hope. When you ask them where they see themselves, they don't talk about next month. They talk about ideas that don't even exist yet. Technologies we haven't invented. Social systems we haven't dared to imagine. And you might think, it's unrealistic. But here's the truth, someone has to dream it before it becomes real. That's what Aquarius does. They're not just thinkers. They're engineers of possibility. And we need that. We need people who refuse to be trapped in the now. Because the now, for many of us, feels heavy. But Aquarius? They carry tomorrow in their soul. That future focus often makes them misunderstood. People say they're not present, that they drift. But in reality, they're anchoring to a future that keeps them going. And they're inviting you to join. They're the friend who pushes you to pursue that idea you've been afraid of. The one who says, why not start your own business? Why not move across the world? Not because they want you to run, but because they see your potential beyond the box you've put yourself in. They're not afraid to break patterns. In fact, they live to break them. If everyone's walking one way, Aquarius is already walking the other. Not to be rebellious, but because they've already questioned the route. And if it doesn't make sense, they'll create a new one. That can be uncomfortable to witness. Especially if you're someone who likes rules, who likes predictability. But Aquarius invites us to ask, why are we doing things this way? Who said this is the only path? What if there's a better one? I once heard about a teacher, another Aquarian, who redesigned her entire curriculum because she realized the traditional method wasn't helping her students think. She was told to stick to the textbook. She didn't. Her students? They didn't just pass. They soared. Not because she followed the rules, but because she challenged them. Aquarians are here to do exactly that. To challenge the systems, the beliefs, even your own self-perception. They look at life like a puzzle that's never finished. And instead of being frustrated by that, they're energized by it. They want to figure out the next piece. But here's something not many people talk about, that kind of thinking. It gets lonely. When you see the world differently, people often don't know what to do with you. And Aquarius feels that deeply. But they keep going anyway. Because their loyalty isn't to comfort. It's to truth. To evolution. To growth. So if you've ever felt like you didn't belong, like your ideas were too much, or too strange, maybe you're carrying a little Aquarius energy too. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what the world needs more of. Aquarius doesn't love like everyone else. They don't fall headfirst into drama, or lose themselves in the emotional highs and lows. Instead, they crave something deeper, intellectual intimacy. A meeting of minds. A bond that feels like two universes recognizing each other. They want conversations that last for hours. The kind where both people leave changed. Not because of romance, but because of revelation. To an Aquarius, love isn't just about affection. It's about inspiration. They need to be with someone who can challenge their thoughts, question their views, and still hold space for their uniqueness. That's why superficial relationships don't work for them. Small talk drains them. Pretending exhausts them. They want truth. They want freedom. And they want someone who understands that the two can exist together. It's why they often end up in unconventional relationships. Not because they're trying to be different, but because they refuse to force themselves into boxes that don't fit. They believe love should be honest, not traditional. You might find them in long-distance dynamics, or partnerships built more on shared ideals than constant closeness. And while others may not understand it, for Aquarius, it makes perfect sense. They measure love not by how often you say I love you, but by how free they feel when they're with you, and how much the connection helps them grow. That's the key. Growth. Aquarians believe relationships should help both people evolve. Stagnation is their silent fear. So they seek partners who are equally committed to self-discovery, to inner work, to becoming better, not just for each other, but for themselves. This also means they're not afraid of distance. In fact, space is sacred to them. It's not rejection. It's reflection. It's how they process, recharge, reconnect with who they are. It can be hard to understand if you're someone who needs constant validation. But with Aquarius, trust looks different. It means letting each other breathe. Knowing that love isn't measured by how much time you spend together, but by how seen and supported you feel when you are. One Aquarian I knew, a musician, used to go on silent retreats for days. No phone. No contact. His partner never panicked. She understood that when he returned, he'd bring back something even deeper, clarity. Ideas. Music born from silence. That's what loving an Aquarius is like. You don't always get noise. But you get meaning. Their definition of intimacy includes laughter over ideas, debates at midnight, and those strange, beautiful moments when both people are simply thinking, together. They'll love you fiercely, but quietly. Not with constant words, but with loyalty that doesn't waver when things get hard. And when they choose you, it's because they see a fellow traveler. Someone who doesn't just want to be loved, but wants to understand love. To question it. To grow with it. They're not here for emotional games. They want partnership. Not dependence. Connection without control. And they offer the same in return. If you ever feel like an Aquarius is pulling away, pause before assuming they don't care. They might be giving you the greatest respect they know, space. Because in their world, freedom and love walk hand in hand. That freedom extends to every part of their life. In friendships, they're the ones who disappear for a week and come back with a book recommendation, a new philosophy, or a story that changes how you see yourself. They don't check in constantly. But they're there when it matters. Solid. Calm. Present. Aquarius friendships are built on depth, not frequency. They're not always the friend who shows up with balloons. But they're the one who stays up till 3 a.m., helping you untangle your thoughts after a life crisis. They don't need a crowd. Just a few people who truly see them. And who they can truly see in return. If you have an Aquarian friend, you know this. They'll let you be weird. Be silent. Be lost. Without fixing you. Without pushing. Just being there. Steady. Honest. And somehow, exactly what you needed. And if they're not emotionally expressive, don't mistake that for apathy. Aquarians show love through action. Through protection. Through creating a space where you can be your full self. They don't smother. They support. And that's what makes their presence feel like peace. But even with all that calm, all that openness, they carry a deep ache that many never see. The ache of not fully belonging. Of always standing just outside the circle. Of being the one who thinks differently, and pays the price for it. But they keep showing up. With ideas. With courage. With questions that unsettle comfort zones. Because they believe in evolution. And they'll keep nudging us toward it. Even if it means standing alone sometimes. So when you meet an Aquarius, whether in love, friendship, or conversation, listen closely. They might not say much. But what they do say will change you. And if you've stayed with me this far, you'll want to stick around a little longer. Because the next 3 insights may be the most personal, the most eye-opening, and perhaps, the most misunderstood of all. There's something powerful about the way Aquarius protects the people they love. It's quiet. Subtle. But unshakable. They don't always say "I've got you." They show it. In the way they step up when no one else does. In the way they sense you're overwhelmed before you've even said a word. They're not the type to make grand gestures. But they'll remember the little things. Like what calms you down when you're anxious. Or how to speak to you when you're too proud to ask for help. You might not notice it right away. But their kind of love is steady. It's reliable. I remember someone telling me about their Aquarian father. He wasn't the most emotionally expressive man. But he'd drive 2 hours to fix a flat tire at midnight. No complaints. No lectures. Just showed up. Tools in hand. Heart wide open in his own quiet way. That's how Aquarius gives love. Not through constant words. but through presence, through action, through loyalty that doesn't need applause. And that's the same energy they bring into every corner of their life. Even when everything changes around them, they adapt. Aquarius doesn't panic when plans fall apart. They pivot. Think fast. Adjust. Because deep down, they understand something many people don't: life is fluid. It doesn't always follow the map. And when it doesn't, you don't freeze, you evolve. That's why they thrive in chaos. Not because they enjoy it, but because they're wired to find clarity in it. They can walk into a room full of uncertainty and see patterns, solutions, pathways. And that comes from their ability to shift their mindset when needed. To reframe problems as puzzles, not threats. It's a psychological strength that makes them incredible leaders in crisis and calm friends in emotional storms. If you've ever had an Aquarius by your side during a hard season, you know, they don't just tell you it'll be okay. They help you see how it will be okay. Step by step. Thought by thought. Until suddenly, the impossible feels manageable again. That kind of mental flexibility isn't just useful. It's transformative. And it comes from something even deeper: their devotion to freedom. Aquarius needs personal freedom like oxygen. Not because they fear commitment, but because they know that without room to breathe, even love will suffocate. They need space to think, to create, to explore who they are beyond their roles. If they're in a job that feels limiting, they'll start planning an exit. If they're in a relationship that feels controlling, they'll slowly pull away. They can't fake it. And they won't stay small. I knew an Aquarian woman who left a high-paying job, not because it was bad, but because it no longer allowed her to think freely. People thought she was crazy. But within a year, she built her own consultancy. And she was thriving. Because freedom gave her energy. And when Aquarius has space, they flourish. They become more loving, more creative, more connected. It's a reminder for all of us to check in with the ways we've been restricting ourselves, the places we've been dimming our light to keep the peace. Aquarius shows us that growth isn't selfish. It's necessary. And that brings us to something even more personal: authenticity. Aquarians don't care much for social expectations. They care about truth. They want to live life in a way that feels aligned. Even if that means disappointing others. Even if it means standing out. They're not afraid to be different. In fact, they embrace it. They dress how they want. Love who they want. Believe what feels right to them, even if it goes against tradition. They live with integrity. Not to be rebellious, but because pretending is exhausting. They know that the moment you start performing for approval, you lose a part of yourself. So they stop performing. And in doing so, they give others permission to do the same. That's why being around an Aquarius can be so liberating. You feel like you can exhale. Like you don't have to impress anyone. Like you can just be. And that is one of the greatest gifts they give. They model what it means to live honestly. To let go of the need to fit in. To find peace in being fully, unapologetically you. And if that makes them misunderstood sometimes, so be it. They'd rather be real and alone than fake and loved. But here's the thing: people are drawn to that kind of realness. Because deep down, we all want to feel free. We all want to be seen for who we truly are. Not just the version we think the world wants. Aquarius reminds us that the path to fulfillment isn't paved with approval. It's paved with truth. And living that truth isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. If you've been holding back, shrinking yourself to stay safe, maybe it's time to let the Aquarius within you lead. Because once you taste that kind of freedom, nothing else feels quite right. And now, we're entering the final stretch. The next 3 insights? They go deeper than the rest. They touch the soul. They stir emotions. And for some, they may even be hard to hear. But if you stay with me, they might just change the way you see Aquarius, and maybe even yourself. Some people say Aquarius is too distant, too aloof. But the truth is, they feel everything. Deeply. They just don't always show it the way others expect. Their empathy doesn't wear a costume. It doesn't perform. It doesn't rush in with grand declarations. It listens. Silently. Carefully. And then it acts. You might not notice how often they check in on you. In small ways. The texts that seem casual but arrive at exactly the right time. The way they remember what matters to you, even when you forget to say it twice. Aquarius doesn't need to understand every word you say. They feel your energy. They read between the lines. And when they do speak, it's often not to fix, but to reflect. To gently show you what you already know but were too scared to face. That's how they care. They don't hover. They don't overwhelm. They just stay near enough for you to feel safe, and far enough for you to feel free. And that's not because they're cold. It's because they respect your process. They honor your emotional space. Because they understand how important it is to honor their own. This quiet empathy often makes them the person others run to in moments of chaos. Because Aquarius doesn't get swept away. They stay grounded. Clear. Calm. And that calm creates safety. And yet, even as they carry that stillness, their mind is always moving. Always learning. Always seeking. Aquarians have this beautiful hunger for knowledge. For ideas. For philosophies that challenge what they already know. They don't read just to collect facts. They read to feel something. To open doors inside themselves. To ask better questions. I once met an Aquarius man who had 4 degrees. But when I asked him why he kept going back to school, he smiled and said, "I'm not chasing titles. I'm chasing perspective." That's the core of it. Perspective. They're not looking to be right. They're looking to understand. And that's why their conversations hit differently. You don't just learn things, you feel seen. You start to think differently. About your life. Your beliefs. Your patterns. Because Aquarius isn't trying to convince you. They're inviting you. Into exploration. Into expansion. Into growth. They'll challenge what you thought you knew, not to argue, but to awaken. They'll bring up questions that stay with you long after the conversation ends. Not to impress you, but to help you become more you. And in that way, Aquarius becomes a mirror. Not of who you are now, but of who you could be. It's why people remember them. Even after years. Even after distance. Because something they said, or didn't say, lit a spark. That spark, it lives in the way they see life. Aquarius has a unique lens. They don't just observe the world, they decode it. Twist it. Flip it upside down until a new pattern appears. Their thoughts don't follow straight lines. They curve. Loop. Take detours. And somehow, they always arrive somewhere unexpected and true. That's why their conversations feel like journeys. You start in one place and end up in a place you didn't even know existed. Their minds are playgrounds of possibility. And they love sharing that space with people who can play. Too. But not everyone is ready for that. Not everyone can handle the way Aquarius breaks open old beliefs. Some people call it weird. Too much. Too out there. But others, they hear truth in it. And once you've heard that truth, you can't unhear it. So if you've ever left a conversation with someone and felt your mind spinning in the best way, they might have been an Aquarius. Or carrying that Aquarian spark. They don't just ask what is. They ask what could be. And that question, that single question, has the power to change your entire life. But here's something even more remarkable. In a world that demands we rush, Aquarius teaches us to pause. To think. To imagine before we react. They offer us a different way to live. One that's more thoughtful. More intentional. More connected to a vision beyond just ourselves. And maybe that's why their calm is so contagious. Being around them can feel like stepping outside of time. Like your thoughts have more room to breathe. Like everything gets a little quieter and a lot clearer. They won't try to impress you or outshine you, but they will challenge you. Gently, intelligently, compassionately. They will help you question everything you've outgrown, including the version of yourself that no longer fits. And when they do, they'll do it without force, without pressure, just with presence. That's the magic of Aquarius. They're not here to lead the crowd. They're here to spark the ones who are ready to think for themselves. And the next 3 insights may take us deeper than ever before. They are truths that are rarely spoken. And for some, they may be uncomfortable, even controversial. But if you're willing to hear them, they might just open something in you that you didn't know needed to be opened. Sometimes, Aquarius just knows. Before a word is spoken. Before a problem is explained. Before anyone else notices. They sense what's needed. Not because they're trying to read minds, but because their intuition runs quietly underneath everything they do. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's just there. Always scanning. Always feeling. Always processing. They can walk into a room and immediately feel if something's off. If someone's hurting. If a situation needs gentle intervention or respectful silence. You might not see them react right away, but they're paying attention. Deeply. Intentionally. They notice your tone before your words. They hear what you're not saying. They understand the sigh you didn't realize you let out. That's why being close to an Aquarius often feels like safety. You don't have to explain every emotion. You don't have to perform your pain. They'll just get it. And respond in their own unique, thoughtful way. It might be a simple suggestion. A quiet presence. A question that opens a door you hadn't seen. Their intuition isn't showy. It's sacred. And it's rooted in empathy, awareness, and emotional intelligence that goes far deeper than most expect. This ability makes them incredible friends, partners, teammates. Because they can step in before things fall apart. Offer clarity when others spiral. And remind you of who you are when you've forgotten. They don't need credit for this. They don't even need to be acknowledged. But they'll do it again and again. Because that's who they are. And maybe, the most beautiful part of all this? Aquarius doesn't just sense what others need. They respect it. They won't try to fix you. Or rescue you. They'll honor your process. Hold space. And when the time is right, they'll gently help you move forward. That's real compassion. The kind that isn't about control, but about trust. And if we've learned anything about Aquarius throughout this journey, it's this: they don't just want love. They want growth. For themselves. For you. For the world. Which brings us to something many overlook. Aquarius doesn't chase the spotlight. But they often end up leading anyway. Not by shouting. Not by demanding. But by embodying something rare. Integrity. They live what they believe. Even when it's hard. Even when it costs them comfort, approval, or ease. They question norms. Not for attention, but for truth. They see through the surface of things. And they're not afraid to stand alone if that's what honesty requires. That's leadership. The quiet kind. The kind that moves from the inside out. And because of that, they become anchors for others. Not because they have all the answers, but because they remind us to keep asking better questions. I once met a woman who told me her Aquarian friend was the reason she finally left a toxic job. Not because he told her what to do, but because, in every conversation, he gently reminded her of her worth, of her potential, of her right to be free. No pressure, just presence. That's the Aquarian way. They're not here to convince you to live their way. They're here to help you live your truth more fully, more boldly, more honestly. And in a world that often rewards conformity, that kind of encouragement is revolutionary. Aquarius doesn't want you to follow. They want you to awaken to your voice, your values, your vision. And if that means disrupting the status quo, so be it. Because change doesn't start with big speeches. It starts with someone quietly saying, "This doesn't feel right, let's try something new." That's how revolutions begin. And Aquarius is often standing right at the edge of that beginning. So if you've been feeling the pull to do things differently, if you've been questioning the rules you once followed without thought, maybe that's the Aquarian energy in you. Maybe it's time to listen to it. Because what you imagine today could be the solution someone else needs tomorrow. And that is what Aquarius is really here for. To remind us that the future is not something we wait for. It's something we create. Now, as we close this journey, take a moment. Breathe. Let everything you've heard settle. Maybe you saw yourself in these words. Maybe you thought of someone you love. Or maybe you just feel a little more understood than you did before. That's what this video was for. Not to define you, but to invite you to explore you. To embrace the contradictions, the questions, the sparks of vision that don't quite fit into boxes. Because that's where your truth lives. And if something in this resonated, if it lit a light inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Comment below what part spoke to you most, or who came to mind. And if you want more videos like this, deep, honest, human, subscribe. Hit like. Stay close. There's so much more ahead. More signs. More stories. More ways to understand yourself and the people around you. You don't have to figure it all out today. Just stay curious. Because self-understanding isn't a destination. It's a journey. And I'm honored to walk a few steps of it with you. Until next time.